Hello, Buckeye fans. Patrick Murphy and Dave Biddle here, live from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We just got done with the weekly postgame, or the weekly press conference, not the postgame press conferences. Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, Will Howard spoke with us about the Penn State game after reviewing the film. A little bit about Purdue this week. They are not paying attention to the college football playoff rankings tonight, as is always the case when the first rankings come out. I'm not sure why we asked that question anyway, but
we didn't ask.
Well, yeah, we did not ask.
You can't blame us.
Right. We will talk about what Ryan Day said specifically and what each guy said specifically, but Ryan Day's demeanor. We've talked about this a couple times this year, Dave, where he has been more serious. Yeah. There have been jokes cracked, and he doesn't smile. I think it's just the nature of the season and the fact that they know there's a lot on the line, and he feels like he needs to set the tone. Today, did it feel like he was a little bit looser?
Yeah, he smiled a few times. I noticed the exact same thing. It's funny you brought that up to kick this off. Yeah, I noticed that as well. He definitely was. I mean, and it's understandable. I mean, they knew. They weren't going to say this, but they knew Oregon and Penn State. And they probably thought coming into the year, perhaps Michigan. Now it looks like maybe Indiana's that 3. We said coming into the year it was a 3-game regular season. So, they were thinking that. And they put everything they had in the Oregon game, lose by 1 point on the road. And you get to stew on it to have a bye week. That was actually, I thought, maybe a good time to have a bye week. Probably a bad time to have a bye week. Looked like crap against a bad Nebraska team. And then everything was on the line. Ryan Day said it himself that the team was at a crossroads. And, Will Howard talked about it as well today. Like, they didn't really want to talk about it, but they knew, that they would have ruined their season if they would have lost to Penn State. So you can just see, like, the sigh of relief, so to speak, from Ryan Day. So, yeah, I definitely noticed a different demeanor from him today.
Yeah, and that was the case in the post-game press conference as well. Even walking out, he walked out at the same time as a group of us. And he just kind of exhaled and was like, it's like, what a month, And so I think it probably is a lot off his shoulders, because if you lose that one, we know the pressure that being the head coach is, being anything in this program is, but especially the head coach and kind of what he deals with. Ryan Day's talked about it. You can't lose a game, right? Well, they did. And now how do you respond? Well, you needed that one, as you said. And I do feel like, they and Ryan Day stressed this, you have to go on from here and build on that, right? You lose to Purdue, you lose to Indiana, you lose to Michigan, you lose the Big Ten championship, whatever it may be, like, that could still screw things up in terms of your plans. But you at least got one, that top 5 win, because let's be honest, he's been hearing the criticism of his record against top 5 teams, and he needed that for sure.
And it's interesting when you look at it. If they do achieve their goals, or let's say they almost achieve, let's say they get to the national championship game but lose, regardless, if they get to the national championship game, assuming they are one of the top 4 seeds, they're exactly halfway through their season right now. Think about that. 8 games through the season. They're going to play 8 more if they achieve their goals. Now, if they're like the 5 seed or something, let's say they would lose to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, I think then they would be, I think it's almost a lock. Ohio State would be the 5 seed. And you could say that's a good thing, because then you play the 12 seed, and then you'd play, maybe like I don't know. Maybe even the second round game wouldn't be that tough, but
probably
me the bye.
Big 12 winner based on the way.
Yeah, probably.
That's a team that you probably think you're going to beat.
Exactly. So I've heard that argument. I understand that, being the 5 seed, you'd have a home game. That'd be cool, having a home game. But still, you want the bye, because you don't want to risk losing. Because any of those teams that are in the playoff, yeah, the 12th seed is going to be the worst team, or the 11th seed is going to be the worst team, obviously, but they're still not going to be a bad team, and you don't want to risk injury. Both those things combined, you want the bye. But I did find it interesting when we're sitting there, it's like, man, it feels late in the season, right? November. If things go well for Ohio State, they're exactly halfway through their season. In terms of amount of games played, obviously the season entails the bye weeks and entails for that, preseason camp and everything that goes with it. But it is interesting. We're 8 games through this season. It could be 16 games.
Yeah, well, and I've always thought it's funny, at least since the BCS and the college football playoff, when coaches say, you win championships in November. Well, actually, you don't anymore. And the messaging there is more, that's when the team can really come together and go on to win those championships. But to your point, even more so now, November is even further up in the schedule given what they hope to do. Let's talk about some of the things Ryan Day said specifically. The offensive line. Obviously, we saw the group that came out there against Penn State with Donovan Jackson at left tackle and Carson Hinzman making his first start. I think I did the math, 343 days since he started against Michigan, which is
a long suspension.
Yeah.
I don't care what they say. That's exactly what it was.
it sounds like that's the group they're going to stick with. Ryan Day
Yeah.
was asked about if Zen Michalski comes back, and he said he doesn't think it'll be this week, but he'd give them some another option. But this seems to be the starting five unless something happens.
It'd be shocking if they went away from it after they looked the way they did against Penn State. You have to think they can get better from here, since that's their first time with that unit playing together, you know, the left side specifically. And, you know, it is interesting, the fact that Carson Hinsman went in there like it was like second nature for him. And I'm sure it helped, you know, playing. He's used to having Donovan Jackson on his left side. Typically it's Carson at center and Donovan at left guard.
Right.
But that, I'm sure that helped, and having that rock at center and Seth McLaughlin. We probably don't talk about Seth enough. He's an absolute rock in there. It's interesting. I think they have the actual captains are good leaders. And then they have these guys who aren't even technically captains who are fantastic leaders, like Seth McLaughlin, Will Howard, Caleb Downs. I mean, these guys, Will Howard and Seth McLaughlin absolutely would be captains, but they're not going to have guys that are like transfers come in here, been, you know, here for a few months and name them a captain, but they're basically captains. So I'm really impressed with the leadership on this team. And yeah, there's no doubt that that is going to be the offensive line moving forward. Is Donovan Jackson an ideal left tackle? No, but like this, you know, in college, he can be a very good left tackle, as we saw. Yeah, he missed a couple of one-on-one battles against a guy that's going to be probably a top 5 pick in Abdul Carter. I mean, it'd be almost crazy if he like went 100%. I thought Donovan Jackson played really well. He's a road grader out there as a run blocker. So, yeah, man, again, you have to think like, okay, that's the starting point, right? They're going to get better. And I give Justin Fry credit, because Justin Fry took a lot of crap from people like me, people like you, all of you out there, all of you and me, giving Justin Fry all the crap. So let's give him his props. Like Justin Fry, you know, he coached them up, and we can't, you know, got to give credit where it's due. We can't rip Justin Fry for the way they play and not give him credit for, especially breaking in new guys like that, or breaking in guys at new spots. So credit to Justin Fry for a job well done. Now get some recruits. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Just win the national championship.
Yeah,
we'll be all right.
That'll help in recruiting, I imagine. I want to talk about Will Howard. We talked with him as well.
Yeah.
Not his best performance. After the game, he said maybe his worst game of the season. But the way he responded in that game, the way he used his legs late, Ryan Day and Will Howard both talked about that. Will Howard was asked about his resiliency, and he went back to 2022 against West Virginia when he threw a pick six similarly early in the game, and was kind of left alone and responded with some big plays, including I think he said a touchdown pass shortly afterwards. And he was like, oh, they still trust me to throw. Like, I need to believe in myself in these situations and put these mistakes behind him. Obviously that helped on Saturday. The fumble, Ryan Day said he can't fumble within the 10-yard line. A weird one. Yeah, you'd like him to secure it better, but like that's not a play I'm concerned about. It's more the reads on the interceptions. Right. But I do like the way that he can bounce back. You know, an experienced guy who knows, hey, we got to move on to the next play, while still acknowledging I've got to be better.
Yeah, I thought overall Will Howard actually played a good game, but you know, except for those two massive mistakes, right, that could have cost him the game. Like,
well, and there were also the throw to Carnell Tate that was out of bounds. Ryan Day talked about that.
That's true. That was a bad throw.
And the Jeremiah Smith one, I'm still not really sure.
Jeremiah, I think he lost that. Maybe he just never saw it.
Yeah.
Or he lost it, didn't see it to the last second, or lost it in the sun, because that was a good throw.
Yeah, after the game, I was sort of questioning, did he think Will Howard was going to underthrow him? Because he had a couple times this year. But then Ryan Day said it was more the deep safeties. Jeremiah didn't think it was coming to him. That's right,
because there was two guys back there. He's like, oh, he's not going to throw it to me. It's like, no, you're Jeremiah Smith. We're still going to throw it to you.
Right. So there were some other throws he probably could have made. But anyway, sorry, continue.
No, I mean, I thought overall he played well, but it's like one of the things that I've just, you know, until it changes, it's like one of the things with Will Howard. And he was asked this, do you feel like you're confident that you are the right guy to lead this team to a national championship? He said, yes, I am. He said, also 8 games into the season, it'd be kind of weird if I was standing up here saying, no, I'm not confident.
It would be a problem.
It would be a problem. And that, you know, that kind of elicited some laughter from the room. But yeah, I mean, the one at the goal line, obviously, you know, and I've said it myself, you can't let that happen. You got to protect the football. Also, we see it all the time in football, right? The most disciplined football players, they get kind of close to that goal line, and man, that's your money, and you're going to be diving for the goal line. And not that he dove, but we see that all the time in football. That's kind of a fluky play. I think he'll take care of the ball in that situation the next time. But I agree with Patrick. The bigger concern is, you know, the misreads. Because I don't think it was that tricky of a coverage at Penn State. It just looked like man, and they switched, as he said, to a cone coverage. Man, that was pretty bad. But overall, I really, really like Will Howard, and I agree that he is the quarterback that can take this team. He won't be the reason, But because of this team overall, I think they can win the national championship, and there's a reason they're the favorite to win the national championship right now. So I believe in Will Howard, but I also know I got to brace myself for 2 bad plays a game. There's gonna be 2 plays a game at least where I'm like, and I don't mean like a deep throw that goes out of bounds. Like you can live with that, right? But I mean like 2 plays that you're like, oh my God, that could cost us the game. So kind of hopefully he can break that trend, because overall I really like the guy.
Well, and the fumble play, like a lot of times when that happens, it gets knocked straight out of bounds. You get the ball in the 1, you score on the next play. Like it was weird because his leg was coming through.
Yeah, that
hit the ball into the end zone.
Yeah.
I think 9 times out of 10, yes, you'd like him to secure it.
Yeah.
But if it gets knocked out, it's probably going out of bounds.
You're right. That was extra fluky. It's always a fluky. And yes, it's the worst rule in football, or at least I think it is. But everybody knows it's the rule. It's the same for both teams. So, changing that rule might be a topic for a different day. But I agree with you. That's always fluky, and that made it extra fluky. You're kicking it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ability at the end of the game to help, and obviously there was a lot that went right on that drive. The offensive line deserves a ton of credit to grind out that 5:13 that was left on the clock. But he had 2 big 3rd down runs, the second one especially, and then he was asked about deciding to slide there. And instead of, I was directly in line. I was standing in the back of the end zone, directly in line with where Will Howard was, and I was videoing it, and I thought he was coming right at us.
Oh man, like Curtis Samuel part 2
exactly,
for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He slid, which I think I said this to you on what we learned afterwards, like a fitting slide given how the Oregon game ended. But he referenced a game. He referenced a game last year. I think it was between North Carolina and App State.
Yes.
Where
I remember,
a guy didn't slide.
Yeah.
They scored a touchdown, but then App State comes the other way. Touchdown, onside kick, touchdown.
It happened to the Browns a couple years ago too, where
yeah.
Nick Chubb scored a touchdown, and then was it Flacco? I think that was Flacco against the Browns then for the Jets.
Yeah,
maybe. I think Garrett Wilson had a touchdown, then they got the onside kick. Yeah, but Will Howard mentioned. Yeah, I remembered that game from last year after he talked about it. So heady play there. He would have loved to, just as he said, to have a 40-yard house call and wave goodbye to the Penn State fan. No, he didn't say that, but yeah, he did the smart thing. Good job by him.
Right. Jim Knowles in this defense, I would say this is about as good of a defensive performance as they've had. Watching it back and kind of paying attention to what Tyler Warren was doing, I mean, they more or less neutralized him. I think it was 4 carries for 47 yards and 3 receptions for 47 yards. Not the numbers he's been putting up. Caleb Downs was very much responsible for a lot of that, not exclusively, but I thought Jim Knowles, and he was talking about how he's kind of doing some more things like they were at Oklahoma State. Ryan Day said they had to what was the term he used?
Re-engineer.
I wouldn't say re-energize either. Re-engineer the defense to some degree after the Oregon game, and it was basically getting down to what they're good at, right?
And reading between the lines, did you take that? And Jim Knowles was actually asked kind of about this later. Did you kind of read between the lines, think that means Jim Knowles is now free to do exactly what he wants? Like, because it looks like Oklahoma State's defense. And he agrees. He's like, yeah, I feel comfortable. Because it looks like what he did at Oklahoma State, whereas some of the things Ohio State was doing was like a hybrid of what he did at Oklahoma State and a hybrid of what Ohio State used to do. And now it's like Jim Knowles' fingerprints have been all over this defense the last 2 weeks.
Yes, I definitely think there's that. I think when we look at Oklahoma, if you go back and watch Oklahoma State, obviously different players, right? So you're not going to do exactly the same thing. But I do think it's been more of that. Jim Knowles probably feels more comfortable calling the blitzes and getting the pressures from different places.
Mixing things up front. Not that they're even tricky things. It's just basic things that they really weren't doing. Stunts, twists, things like that. By the way, give Dan Rubin credit on this because he brought this up on yesterday's Bucknuts Morning 5. I wasn't aware of this. So Andy Kolonicki got a lot of pub coming into the game. I even was like, this is the most innovative Penn State offense I've seen. Now, I get that's a low bar. Penn State's not known for innovative offenses. I get that. Maybe 1994 they were, because they were a really good team in 94 with Keyshawn Carter and all those guys. But listen, Kolonicki, rightfully so, I think, had, a lot of people were talking him up. I mean, look at what Kansas has done without him. They've taken a big step back, and Penn State, despite what Ohio State was able to do to them, they've been a good offense this year. But interesting stat here. In Kolonicki's time as a power now 4 offensive coordinator, so his time at Kansas and his time now just his brief time at Penn State, there have been 2 times that his offense has not scored a touchdown. Once was against Ohio State this past week against Jim Knowles. The other time was when he was at Kansas against Oklahoma State and Jim Knowles.
Yeah, 2021.
So Jim Knowles now twice has held Kolonicki, the guru, without a touchdown, his defense. And this is why Jim Knowles was showing off the dance moves afterwards, because that's what you do when you hold an offense like that to no touchdowns. Just fantastic.
Well, and I think the biggest thing with an offense that is going to do the motions and lining guys up in strange spots and everything is preparation and knowing where, making sure the players know, yeah, this window dressing doesn't matter. We watch this on film. We know what's going to happen here. And like the fourth down play by the goal line was a great example of that, where, and I touched on this upon further review that I published before the press conference. Lathan Ransom knows from the snap that Tyler Warren is coming a little out route, and he is on top of it. Caleb Downs jumps the secondary receiver, and there's nowhere to go if you're Penn State there, unless you want to try and scramble and hope Drew Aller can get it.
Right.
You could question that play call on fourth down, I guess, but having been stopped on 3 rushing plays right before then, again, I think you could question some of that play calling if we're doing this about Penn State, but we're not. But they were prepared for that. And this, you can look at a number of plays throughout the game that it felt like they knew more or less what was coming and were able to snuff it out. Even if it wasn't no gain, it wasn't a big gain. It was 7 yards instead of 20 or things like that. And I think that's credit to this coaching staff.
And the depth showed up on that defensive line,
absolutely.
especially. I mean, Caden McDonald, you lose a stud like Tyleek Williams and you don't miss a beat. Why? Because Caden McDonald's in there wrecking shop. And, they specifically that third down play on the goal line stand.
Yeah.
He's taking his guy and just throwing him back.
He ran the center, who is a good center, ran into the motion. He's an offensive lineman. He was in motion from out wide.
Yeah.
And knocked him back further into he had to get out of the way, and it blew up the whole play.
And that dude that was in motion, that's another thing that they did a good job of preparing for Ohio State. They told him, okay, this guy's going to go in motion. This 350-pound offensive lineman, number 71, is going to go in motion. He's not an eligible receiver.
Right.
Don't let that. He's definitely blocking. It's just a matter. He's probably just going to come and crack back. So you're right. They were prepared for everything. Great job there. And Caden McDonald he was an absolute beast in there. And I think Caden Curry keeps playing well. Kenyatta Jackson's playing well. Now we're seeing Edric Houston playing a little D tackle in there, a little quick 3-tech in there. So I give the D line a lot of credit for what they're able to do there, showing their depth. And, I thought Tuimolo Al played a good game. I thought that was going to be a solo sack. I guess that was half a sack.
Yeah, Kenyatta got in there to help.
Yeah. So, with the way the offensive line, that was a huge concern. Could they get on? Could they at least have some confidence moving forward? Well, they've got a ton of confidence now. They feel like they have their 5 going forward. And now, could the defensive line, could they all get on the same page with Knowles and LJ? Could they, be a little bit more modern and not antiquated? Yes. So all the things that were about this team, you're like, they've even, against Nebraska, they didn't show it a lot against Penn State. They tried to a couple times and missed. The deep ball was there against Nebraska early, and they didn't do anything till the final drive. So my point is, some of the concerns you had about this team, it's like, oh, okay, I can see this improving. And again, I go back to this. They'll be number 3 when the rankings come out tonight, but they are number 1 in the rankings according to Vegas. They have Ohio State is your betting favorite to win the national championship.
I wanted to end with the college football playoff rankings. I think we both agree number 3 seems where they're going to be. Oregon or Georgia, number 1. I assume Oregon.
Definitely Oregon.
But as you look at kind of the rest of the rankings, Indiana, I think, is a really interesting one.
Yeah.
What does the committee think of this Hoosiers team, which is not a brand name, but that shouldn't matter. This is a team that has won convincingly everybody they've played. I think we generally talk about that first rankings as it doesn't mean anything in terms of where they end up, but you can kind of get a feel for what the committee is thinking with how they start these rankings, right?
Absolutely. And Indiana's a great example. We keep having this debate. Now, Ohio State has to make this a debate. Would 11-1 Indiana make it with their one loss being to Ohio State in Columbus? And let's further the point. Let's say then Ohio State goes on to beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, and Ohio State is the number 1 seed. So according to the committee, Indiana's one loss would be against who the committee think is the best team in the nation, and Indiana lost to them on the road. Now, they can't get blown out, but I think 11-1 Indiana gets in. But to your point, if Indiana is ranked 10th tonight, that doesn't bode well for them. If they're 8th, that bodes well for them, because then I can't see them, even with their weak schedule, I can't see them dropping out of the top 11, which is what it really is, the top 11, with just a somewhat close loss to Ohio State. What do I mean by that? Anything 17 points and less. They can't get beat by 20 or more. Certainly not by 30 or more. I don't think Ohio State could beat them by 30 or more. Indiana's a legit good team. I think Ohio State's going to win. But that is a great point. For Ohio State, not a lot of debate. They're going to be number 3. In fact, it's no debate tonight. They'll be number 3. You'll see a picture of Lorenzo Styles Jr. with our story on Bucknuts later.
He wears 3.
Number 3. In case you would ask. That's how we do it. We're very creative. But yeah, Indiana is going to be an interesting one. Notre Dame. Some of those teams where if you play it out, like would 11-1 Indiana make it? I think that they would, because they've just been blowing everybody out of the water. And again, their one loss in theory would be at Ohio State. So. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they're at, where Notre Dame's at, where some of these other teams are at.
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 Big Ten teams are getting there.
For sure.
Well,
they have 4 is my question.
Yeah, right. And it'll be interesting to see kind of where the Big Ten teams are ranked, where the SEC teams are ranked, because those are the 2 conferences we believe are the best. And it's important to remember, these rankings don't necessarily line up with where the college football playoff will be, because the top 4 or the 4 Power 4 conference winners will get the top 4 spots, so that doesn't really matter where they're ranked.
Right.
And
unless Boise State finishes ahead of the Big 12 champ or
that's
something.
what I was going to say, is the group of 5, or whatever we call that now, will also be, the winner will also be in there, the highest ranked one. So things will get changed up once the actual playoff bracket comes out. But I think you can get a good sense of that tonight.
Nothing else going on tonight, so might as well, right?
If you need to take your mind off anything else tonight.
I don't know. Is there anything else going on tonight?
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. Playoff show starts at, I believe, 7 on ESPN. Is that right?
I don't know.
I think it's at 7. Because the call.
I should probably know since I'm writing a story about it.
Right. And the last thing, do you think Lathan Ransom took the Nebraska game off so you could get more Lorenzo Styles pictures for this exact moment?
Yes, I think that's what that was behind it. And it made Penn State think he wasn't going to be able to play. Yeah. Even faked like he was limping off the field after practice last week. So we would all report to, Lathan's limping. He's not going to play. There's no way. There's no way they'd move Jordan Hancock to safety just for one game if they thought Lathan was going to come back. They were just playing possum the entire time. 3D chess out here, my friends.
All right, Dave. We're going to get out of here. We'll have plenty more this week going into the game. Ryan Day, he stressed this Purdue team better than their record. We'll see.
Yeah, they could at least be 2-6, not 1-7. So I agree with them. Right. They're probably more like a 2-6 team, not a 1-7 team. So beware.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll talk to you later this week.